When we picture the Roman Empire, we imagine discipline. But beneath that image, another side of Rome existed. Across the empire, powerful substances moved quietly through military camps. Opium tablets sold as openly as bread. Wine mixed with herbs and sedatives, that was slowly poisoning the ruling class without their knowledge. Plants so valuable the Romans stamped them on their coins, before consuming them into permanent extinction. Many of these began as medicine, but in a world defined by war and constant threat they became something else entirely. Even emperors relied on them. Substances most people today have never heard of. By the end of this video you will see the Roman Empire differently. Subscribe if you want to keep uncovering the stories history left out. Survival. To understand why drugs were so deeply embedded in Roman life, you have to understand one thing first. Rome had no antibiotics, no modern surgery, and no clean, reliable water supply. What Rome did have instead was centuries of plant-based medical knowledge, borrowed from Greek physicians, Egyptian healers, and remedies carried across the empire's vast trade routes. They did not understand the causes of infection or why entire legions could sometimes be crippled by illness before ever reaching a battlefield. But through centuries of observation, Roman physicians learned which plants dulled pain, which ones induced sleep, and which ones could keep a failing body alive a little longer. That knowledge was not a luxury. It was one of the few defenses Roman society had against a world filled with injury, disease, and uncertainty. And it began with the one substance every Roman consumed every single day. Wine, the empire's daily drug. Romans drank wine every single day. Soldiers received it as part of their official rations. Citizens drank it at meals, at gatherings, at religious ceremonies. But Roman wine is not what we drink today. Roman wine was routinely mixed with additives, honey, herbs, spices, resins, and sometimes substances with mild narcotic properties. It was diluted with water. Not because Romans were moderate, but because undiluted wine was considered dangerously strong. In many parts of the empire, wine mixed with water was actually safer to drink than the water itself. Wine functioned simultaneously as a stimulant, a painkiller, a social lubricant, and a daily military ration. For Romans, it was simply part of daily life, that restricting access to wine was considered a form of punishment. Early Roman traditions even restricted women from drinking it, not because of health concerns, but because Roman men associated wine with loss of self-control. Roman writers recorded that husbands would check their wives' breath for the smell of alcohol. Whether those stories were literal truth or moral propaganda, they reveal something important. Romans understood that wine had power over behavior. They just didn't stop drinking it. They couldn't. The empire ran on it. But here is the detail most people overlook. Romans commonly sweetened their wine with a substance called lead acetate, a compound made by dissolving lead in vinegar. It tasted sweet. It mixed easily. And it was slowly poisoning everyone who drank it. Over time, too much lead could slowly damage the mind, mood instability, reduced fertility, and erratic behavior. The Romans did not know this. They simply thought their wine tasted better. Rome's most common drink may have also been its slowest killer. Opium, the empire's strongest medicine. If wine was Rome's daily companion, opium was its emergency weapon against pain. Opium was extracted from the poppy plant and was widely available throughout the Roman world. It could be purchased in small tablets at marketplaces across the empire. No prescription, no restriction, no stigma. It was prescribed by physicians for pain, insomnia, chronic illness, and surgical procedures. The famous Roman physician Galen wrote extensively about its uses and its dangers. And here is where the story becomes more complicated. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, the man who wrote Meditations, one of the most celebrated texts on discipline and self-control ever produced. The author of You Have Power Over Your Mind, Not Outside Events, took a daily dose of theriac, a complex medicine that almost certainly contained opium. His personal physician prepared it for him. Ancient sources suggest he relied on it to manage chronic pain and the immense stress of ruling an empire at war. The emperor who told the world to master its emotions and endure suffering without complaint could not get through his day without a substance derived from the poppy. But Marcus Aurelius was not unusual. He was simply the most famous example of a much wider pattern. Opium was embedded in Roman medicine so deeply that removing it would have collapsed the empire's ability to treat the wounded, manage chronic illness, and maintain the health of its armies. Opium also had a darker role. In a society where certain forms of suicide were considered honorable, particularly among elites facing political disgrace or execution, opium and similar sedatives offered a way to leave life without violence. Roman writers describe the idea of drifting from life on a gentle wave, choosing death calmly rather than suffering it publicly. And then there was poison. Roman political history is inseparable from poison. The most famous poisoner in Roman history was a woman named Locusta, who prepared lethal compounds for imperial assassinations. While her exact recipes remain unknown, the substances available to Roman poisoners, including opium in lethal doses, made political murder disturbingly accessible. The same knowledge that healed soldiers on the frontier could kill an emperor in his own palace. Medicine and murder shared the same shelf. Silphium, the lost plant. Among all the substances Romans valued, one stands apart, not because of what it did but because of what happened to it. Silphium grew in a single narrow region of coastal North Africa near the city of Cyrene. It was used as a spice, prescribed as medicine, and most notably believed to work as a contraceptive. Romans prized it so highly that they stamped its image on their coins, one of the only plants in history to appear on currency. But silphium had a fatal flaw. It refused to be cultivated. Every attempt to farm it failed. It grew only where it chose to grow in limited quantities on its own terms. Rome did not accept those terms. Demand was relentless. Harvesting was aggressive. And slowly over decades the supply dwindled. By the 1st century AD, silphium was almost gone. By the 2nd century it had disappeared entirely. The Romans consumed an entire species out of existence. Whatever silphium truly was, whatever it could actually do, is now permanently unknown. The plant, its chemistry, its real medical properties, all of it, erased by an empire that wanted more than nature could provide. Theriac, Rome's legendary cure-all. An emperor sits at a banquet table surrounded by the most powerful men in the world. Gold plates, roasted meats, musicians playing softly in the corner. Everything looks in control. But the emperor is afraid. Not of the barbarians pressing against the northern borders. Not of senators whispering behind marble columns. He is afraid of his cup. Because in Rome, the most dangerous weapon in the empire is not a sword or a siege engine. It is a liquid poured quietly into a glass while someone smiles at you. So before he eats, before he drinks, before he touches anything on that table, he swallows a thick, dark paste. A mixture of more than 60 ingredients. Herbs, spices, honey, opium, even viper flesh. He takes it every single day not because he is sick, but because he believes it will keep him alive. The paste was called theriac. Originally created as an antidote to poison, theriac became one of the most famous medicines in the Roman world. Over time, physicians expanded the formula into a complex preparation containing dozens of ingredients. Recipes varied, but most included herbs, exotic spices, honey, and small amounts of opium for pain relief. Romans believed theriac could cure almost anything: poison, infection, chronic pain, even plague. For emperors and the elite, it offered a sense of protection in a world where political power came with constant danger. Rivals, generals, and even servants could turn a meal into a weapon. The logic was simple: take the antidote every day and no poison could harm you. In a world where a single cup of wine could end an emperor's life, theriac became one of the most trusted medicines in the Roman Empire. Henbane and mandrake. Mandrake was the closest thing the ancient world had to surgical anesthesia. Administered before operations, it could render a patient completely unconscious. Roman surgeons depended on it. Slightly too much and the patient would never wake up. Roman doctors walked that line every time they used it. Henbane sat alongside mandrake as another volatile tool. In careful doses it dulled pain and eased anxiety. In larger amounts it triggered hallucinations and cardiac failure. Certain mushrooms also appeared in Roman medical and cultural texts. While their use was not as widespread as opium or mandrake, Romans were aware that some fungi carried psychoactive or toxic properties. Mushrooms occupied a strange space in Roman life. Sometimes consumed, sometimes feared, and in at least one famous case, weaponized. Ancient sources suggest that the Emperor Claudius may have been murdered by poison concealed in a dish of mushrooms, served by people he trusted at his own table. Then there was honey. Not ordinary honey, but honey produced by bees that fed on rhododendron flowers. This so-called mad honey contained natural toxins that could cause dizziness, disorientation, and powerful hallucinations. While more commonly associated with regions east of Rome, mad honey was known in the ancient Mediterranean world. It was another reminder that in Rome's landscape, even something as innocent as honey could become dangerous. Cannabis and hemp. Roman writers including Pliny the Elder and the physician Galen both mentioned hemp. Galen noted that hemp seeds were sometimes eaten in small cakes and produced a warm, pleasant sensation. But honestly, cannabis was not important to Romans the way opium or mandrake were. Hemp was grown primarily for rope and textiles. Romans were aware of its mild effects. They simply had stronger options and did not prioritize it. What made Roman medicine genuinely frightening was not any single substance. It was the entire system. Every treatment balanced on the edge between cure and catastrophe. The empire's drug and spice trade networks. None of these substances existed in isolation. Behind every tablet of opium, every shipment of exotic herbs, every dose of theriac was a vast trade network stretching thousands of miles, from the Mediterranean to India, Arabia, East Africa, and beyond. Rome's drug supply depended on the same trade routes that carried silk, spices, and luxury goods. When those routes functioned, Roman medicine thrived. When they were disrupted by war, piracy, or economic collapse, the supply of critical substances could disappear almost overnight. This created a vulnerability that most people overlook. Rome's medical infrastructure was not self-sufficient. It depended on international trade for its most important medicines. And as the empire's borders contracted and its trade networks deteriorated in the later centuries, that infrastructure began to quietly fail. The empire that conquered the known world could not produce its own medicine without the known world's cooperation. Reflection. The substances that Romans used were not recreational indulgences. They were tools for managing pain, treating illness, sustaining armies, conducting trade, and navigating the brutal realities of life in the ancient world. But tools shaped the people who used them. Wine became so central to Roman identity that life without it was unthinkable. Opium became so important to Roman medicine that even the most disciplined emperor in Roman history could not go without it. Silphium was so valuable that Rome consumed it into extinction. And theriac became so trusted that emperors swallowed it daily, believing it could protect them from the very empire they ruled. These are not stories about drugs. They are stories about systems. Systems that sustained one of the most powerful civilizations ever built, and systems that, over time, revealed their own fragility. Rome did not fall because of drugs. But the substances that quietly supported the empire for centuries tell us something important about how power actually works. It is never sustained by strength alone. Behind every empire, behind every army, behind every great civilization, there are hidden dependencies, things that seem small, ordinary, even invisible until they are gone. And by then it is already too late. Tell us in the comments, which of these Roman substances shocked you the most? If you enjoy hidden history like this, subscribe for more stories from the Roman Empire.